Hi everybody, I'm Sayaka Cosplay, and today I'm going to be showing you how I made the shoulder for my medieval version of Evangelion Unit 2. I'm going to be showing you how I made this from paper pattern all the way to finished foam piece. So stick around and let's get started.
Hello and welcome to VoiceOver Sayakat. So for the rest of today's video, I have all of this nice, lovely making of footage, which I'm going to be talking over and speeding up and slowing down depending on what's going on in the video. So here I'm using ad paper. This is stuff I get in the newspaper or just in my mail. I use it because I get a lot of it and it's free. And I have just used this for years. You can use other paper, butcher paper, or plain white computer paper, but this is what I use. So I start by sketching out a rough shoulder shape and then add on more paper if I need more paper to get the shape that I want or need more surface area for drawing details. And you can see here I'm going to add a little piece of tape and a piece of paper and continue to sketch out the pattern. Now, I'm going to be looking at my phone a lot to look at the reference image, going back and forth between that and sketching out the shape. And I'm just going to start speeding up the footage here so you get to see the whole making of process. This whole process took me about 2.5 hours to go from pattern to completed foam shoulder. This is fairly normal for me. It's going to take longer or shorter depending on your level of expertise, but for a single piece, it's about a couple hours between patterning and making the final product. Alright, so here I'm tracing the shoulder pattern that I made onto another piece of paper, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm going to make a paper mock-up and try it on my actual shoulder before I cut into foam. So I want to make something that has a three-dimensional shape that I can look at and adjust if needed to be able to kind of have an idea of what the pattern and the final product is going to look like on before I cut into the foam. Now, unfortunately, I don't actually have footage of me trying this on because that was off camera. So you're just going to have to take my word for it that I taped this up and put it on my shoulder and looked at it and made adjustments as I needed. And, oh yeah, my camera shifted. Anyway, so I ended up taking it apart, adjusting the pattern because it was a little too, I guess the word is bubble shaped. Remade it, redid it, put it back together, and tried it on again. And then once I was happy with the shape of the pattern, I took that and cut it up and traced it onto foam. And yes, I am aware I am wearing PJ pants. It's quarantine. I'm going to craft in something comfortable. So there was one piece of the pattern that I hadn't made yet, and that was the kind of, I guess it's like a lip on the top of the shoulder that I hadn't made yet because it's a weird three-dimensional piece and it's weird to pattern. So I took the paper shoulder pattern and traced it onto another piece of paper, cut that out, taped it on, tried it out, and adjusted it because it wasn't quite wide enough. And then at that point, I had all the pattern pieces that I needed. All right, so at this point is when I start to break the larger paper pattern down into the individual pieces that I need. There's multiple layers to this shoulder piece. There's actually 6 per side. So there's 3 small little pieces and then 3 larger pieces, actually 7, but the 7th piece is just 1. So I'm cutting all of the individual pieces out. Now I'm actually going to make some modifications when I trace them onto the foam because they're going to have to overlap to be able to glue together. So you're going to see when I trace them onto the foam that I make little lips on some of the pieces that are going to have to overlap, and on the top of the shoulder, on the reference, there's actually little spikes or little like triangular bits that I don't have on the pattern because I didn't want to make that on the paper. So you're going to see me alter and modify the traced piece a little bit. Now I actually do take my patterns and digitize them after a project and get rid of the paper pattern to get rid of clutter. So when I actually digitize the pattern, I'll add that change into the pattern to make sure that it's there in the digital version. Also, while I was voicing over, I missed the fact that I held up the marker that I'm using, which is a RevMark white paint pen. This is the type of pen that I use when drawing onto foam because it shows up really well. Foam kills markers, and it doesn't really kill these paint pens because they're not markers, they're paint pens. So if you're tracing a lot on foam and worried about killing your pens, try out these paint pens. They're not bad. Not sponsored. Anyway, the foam that I'm using for the shoulder is 6mm EVA foam. This is foam from TNT Cosplay Supply. I am an affiliate for them, so yes, sponsored. If you want to get foam for yourself, check that out. Check them out. It's good stuff. And I'm going to use a box cutter for cutting all this out. You also notice that I sharpened the blade before I started cutting. That is something that you absolutely need to do. Foam dulls blades really fast. So you'll see me intermittently sharpening the blade, cutting things out, sharpening the blade, cutting things out. And I'm going to cut everything out. I haven't actually traced everything out because this little piece of foam wasn't quite big enough to fit everything. So I cut everything out, trace what I still need to cut out, and then it's glue time. Alright, so once I have everything cut out, I'm just going to kind of lay the pieces together and make sure everything looks right and is going to glue together just fine. The glue that I'm going to be using today is Barge, or on this project is Barge. It's contact cement. It works really, really well for foam. It's really stinky though, so please make sure that you have good airflow, whatever workspace you're working in, and wearing a respirator. I do have one on, you just can't see it off camera for this part of the project. Barge takes a little while to dry and you have to cover both sides that you're going to be sticking together with glue. That's why it's called contact cement. It has to make contact with more cement to make a nice bond. So you're going to cover what you need to cover in the glue on both sides, and you're going to give it probably about 3 to 5 minutes to dry. You want to spread it in a really thin layer. The thinner the layer, the better actually when it comes to contact cement. And I'm going to glue together all of the panels first and then glue it down the center. So you can see here I'm actually cutting off some of the foam from the inside to make an angle for the side panels to glue together. I'm also heating up the panels before I glue them together to bend them a little bit before they get glued down the center. I'm going to do that for the little panels and for the big panels. I'm going to do the same exact thing on those panels as well. I'm going to cut a little 45-degree angle into the top of the panels before they get glued together. Also going to heat those as I need to heat them, to shape them, to get them to come into the right shape. Oh, cat. He likes to get in my work sometimes. You may have seen him in my favorite video. I also don't like him being around when I'm gluing because fumes of Barge are not good for humans and they're not good for cats, so he had to go away. And yeah, fiddling with my camera. And so yeah, I'm just heating it. There's a cat, heating it, and bringing it into shape. I'm gonna glue the little panels into the big panels once everything is in the proper alignment. And the reason I'm showing all of this footage is to show the entire process, how these things come together, what it looks like to make a whole piece, and the fact that once this was all assembled, I tried it on and didn't like how it looked. So before I did the last part of this project, which was putting trim on the edges, I tried it on and realized that the bottom piece, number 3, didn't look right. So I actually ripped it off and redid the angle of the number 3 piece at the little piece at the bottom and changed how it was oriented so that it looked more like how I envisioned it looking. So goes to show that we all make mistakes, need to readjust things, and these things happen. The last step in making the shoulder is gluing all the trim on. And for the trim, I used 4mm foam instead of 6mm. I wanted it to be a little bit lower profile. And I just glued 2 strips, one strip on one half and one strip on the other half, around the edges of the larger pieces. I didn't put trim on the smaller guys because it didn't look like there was trim in the art, and so I didn't put trim on that section. And that was the last step. And I've shortened 2.5 hours worth of work into a 11-minute video. So I hope you enjoyed watching this making of the shoulder piece, and I will see you guys in the next video.